A sitcom needs to be relatable, its characters familiar, as a television series is a commitment of several years of the audience's life. A sitcom often mirrors the lives of the audience, and because of this, the characters are often members of the lower economic classes, waged or salaried workers, laborers, and those performing essential duties while on the low rung of the ladder. Some sitcoms in which classes featured lean in heavily on the social concerns of the lower classes more than the economic concerns, and some barely mention either. The series that do reference economic concerns do so at their own risk, as poverty is not inherently funny. Married with Children was the rare sitcom that frequently referenced the family's poverty, but often blamed the Bundy family's circumstances on the fact that Al married Peg, or on customers making Al's occupation as shoe salesman so painful, or, at least in one case, on a curse. Home Improvement had the flavor of a working-class series, but without the economic concerns. Tim fancied himself a man's man blue-collar hero, bathed in a romanticized laborer's masculinity while maintaining local celebrity status and a house in the suburbs. The Simpsons only glibly mention the family's occasional economic concerns, often to the point of parody, in which Homer is able to land many different occupations, some of them high-paying, over the course of the series' now infinite run. Some working-class television series have the relatable family patriarch as a police officer, which muddies the waters of class conflict further. Sitcoms balance relatability with aspiration. Characters need to have enough in common with the audience for them to relate to them, but not so much that the audience's stresses and concerns play out.
I'm gonna be honest, dude. If you're in the chat exclusively to keep spamming the same thing over and over again, and you've been spamming for like the past fucking hour and I haven't responded to you, you might be new here, but I read your comments. Like the UFO one, like the UFO guy. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to watch some fucking weird like UFO freak video that you have that you want me to watch. Okay? There was another one who was like trying to get me to watch another fucking video too. Like I'm reading all, no, the one that said didn't read this. No, I read it.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your
Stop saying
father,
didn't
the
see
devil.
this. I'm seeing all of it. You're fucking annoying me. Okay, let's just keep going. I don't know where the fuck the UFO guy is now, but
you don't love the spirit of justice.
it's not happening, okay?
You love your father,
Thank you.
the devil.
You are just a fucking asshole with an ego.
You have attacked me and lied.
Holy shit, abandoned Licky. What the fuck? Did you just give 50 tier 1 gift subs? Holy fuck, dude. Hey, yeah, I did that for that painting I made, lol. I just missed that you saw it. Sorry about that. Wait, what? No, I didn't see yours. I'm sorry. Three-month sub calling Hasan an asshole. Yeah, I think that
You don't
he was
love
memeing.
the spirit of justice. You love your father.
I don't
the
think that
devil.
person was being serious. Thank you.
With too much familiarity on the television screen. Sitcoms traffic in comedy, and poverty is not funny. And then there's Bob's Burgers, a long-running television comedy in which virtually everything that happens is seen through the lens of the family's ongoing economic concerns. The series stars Bob Belcher, the owner of Bob's Burgers, a fairly unsuccessful burger restaurant, or slop shop, as the children mockingly declare, Linda, the wife of Bob and unpaid worker at the restaurant, and their children, Tina, Jean, and Louise, all three unpaid workers at the restaurant where they work after school. It is unclear exactly how much money Bob makes, the expenses of Bob's Burgers, the expenses of 3 children, and the cost of the rent in the apartment above the restaurant where they live, but
Bob's Burgers, of course, also hires one of my favorite political commentators of all time, Tim Cedar.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
Good old
Belch again.
Good old Sammy Cedar. Also John Benjamin, who is Sam Cedar's friend, who is the main voice of Bob, and also
you
so
love
many
your
other
father, the devil.
so many other incredible characters, is a huge Bernie bro, and goes on Sam's show all the time as well. Sam Cedar, for those of you who don't know, is my true uncle.
The spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
But the series makes it clear in almost all of its 194 episodes that the restaurant is not popular, the family is constantly behind on bills, always late on paying the rent, and unable to provide much for their children. While many comedies shy away from this, Bob's Burgers consistently references the family's poverty.
Wow, this is nice. I feel really poor right now.
Yeah.
This is weird. Let's go home, live our lives the best we can. I mean, we're poor, but we're happy. Binders, Lynn. They put them in binders this year. I think we need to explain to them what poor means.
The series actually uses the word poor on a regular basis, anathema in sitcoms. In addition to these references, episodes often center around Bob trying to dig his family out of poverty or trapped in situations caused by their poverty. In Season 1, Episode 6, Bob takes a second job as a cab driver at night while working in the restaurant during the day. In Season 1, Episode 7, Linda turns their cramped apartment into a bed and breakfast. In Season 1, Episode 12, Bob laments that his burger restaurant is struggling because he lives in a seafood town that hails the annual Lobster Fest as its biggest event. The series often references movies that have working-class economic concerns, such as Season 2, Episode 1, which recounts the events of The Goonies, or Season 2, Episode 2, which recounts the events of Dog Day Afternoon. Bob's efforts to increase traffic to his restaurant often blow up in his face, such as in Season 2, Episode 4, in which Bob buys an arcade game that eventually mocks him in his own restaurant. Or in Season 2, Episode 5, in which Bob buys the cheapest vehicle possible to supplement his income with a food truck. These are only a few examples, and only in the first 2 of the series' 10 seasons so far. In addition, most of the family's rivalries and personal relationships are shaped through class. Tina's primary rival throughout the series is Tammy, a popular girl who transferred to Wagstaff School in Season 2, Episode 8. Tammy is spoiled and is a bad influence on Tina, but the conflict is more that of personality than class until Season 4, Episode 13, in which Tammy refuses to invite Tina to her elaborate and expensive bat mitzvah.
We get it, bro. You fucking love the show. Holy shit. He has really documented this pretty hardcore, huh? My man loves the show, but goddamn.
Louise convinces the party planner to no longer be Tammy's subject, and Tina steps in, takes over the party, and makes it more fun for everyone, while Tammy is stuck in a giant representation of her own head, towering above the partygoers. The imagery is not subtle. Tammy is, perhaps, not as rich as she believes herself to be, as Season 6, Episode 10 reveals that her parents must have lied to her about Wagstaff being a private school when it is, in fact, a public school. Tina's most notable relationship is with Jimmy Jr., the son of Jimmy Pesto, Bob's most immediate economic rival. Jimmy Pesto is the owner of an Italian restaurant across the street. Bob is simple, honest, and poor, whereas Jimmy Pesto is flashy, dishonest, and successful. Jimmy is not actually Italian, but changed his name to fool his customers about the authenticity of his restaurant. Jimmy is not...
Oh my god. That is the greatest crime. Italian face is unacceptable. How are you gonna fucking do that? How the fuck are you gonna steal Italian valor over here? What the fuck? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all my Italianos in the fucking chat. I'm sorry.
Rich, but his restaurant is successful, placing him in the middle class or perhaps even upper middle as a business owner with real paid workers. Jimmy consistently mocks Bob through classist insults about their comparative levels of success and the family's poverty. Bob's Burgers confronts the myth of meritocracy. Many episodes remark on the fact that Bob makes excellent burgers at affordable prices. Season 5, Episode 5 shows how much craft Bob puts into his work, competing for the title of Best Burger. However, Bob is consistently outclassed by Jimmy Pesto, who uses low-quality horse meat, mostly uses frozen food instead of fresh food, and doesn't know nearly as much about food preparation as Bob. Another rival who is shaped through class is Randy, a filmmaker who first threatens to put Bob out of business for serving hamburgers, then rivals Bob with a successful food truck, and is generally a thorn in Bob's side. Randy is a trust fund kid, a fail son of some unexplained fortune.
How do you... Oh, right, you're a trust fund kid.
We prefer the term lucky baby duckies.
Yet another antagonist shaped through class is Helen, a woman who inherited wealth when her husband passed away under mysterious circumstances. She's introduced in Season 5, Episode 19, and then reappears in Season 9, Episode 12, in which the children compete with her over a missing valuable. Bob does not maintain many friendships, devoting nearly his entire life to his family and his restaurant. However, his best customer, a working-class laborer named Teddy, forms a bond with Bob which is only sometimes reciprocated. Teddy is a self-employed handyman and Bob is a small business owner with no hired workers. Bob and Teddy don't have much in common, but this shared lifestyle will always mean Bob will have more in common with Teddy than with, say, Randy.
I didn't realize this was just like running us through what happens on Bob's Burgers. This video is just talking about what happens in Bob's Burgers.
Bob's Burgers frequently portrays the police as either incompetent or actively harmful to the communities they are presumably instructed to protect. In Season 1, Episode 5, the police are represented by two officers who pass by the restaurant as it's being robbed, and then fail to go after him when he robs the restaurant again. By Season 2, these officers are gone and the face of the police is Sergeant Bosco. In the aforementioned bank robbery hostage episode, Bosco fires on the bank several times despite the fact that it puts Bob and the other hostages at risk. The robber, Mickey, is not violent but poor. After Mickey is arrested and eventually released, he becomes a friend of the family and later gains employment at the Wonder Wharf. Again, Bob and Mickey have little in common, but their shared class fosters solidarity. Class shapes every relationship in the series. In addition to this, class shapes the episodes, though some are more overt than others. In Season 4, Episode 15, Tina, Jean, Louise, and their friend, regular-sized Rudy, are locked in the back of a train for wine connoisseurs. Unwilling to accept their status as second-class citizens, they plan to rob the train of its chocolate. In Season 6, Episode 11, Tina, Jean, Louise, regular-sized Rudy, and a few others ask to share the bounce castle with the wealthy birthday girl. She rebuffs them, and they seize the bounce castle for themselves. Season 7, Episode 17 revolves around Bob and Linda winning a contest to take part in an elaborate LARP of the show's Downton Abbey proxy. Their roles are assigned at random, and Bob and Linda are given the parts of servants, while other guests are given the parts of the wealthy, a nod to being born into one's economic circumstances. Bob is tempted by the wealthy LARPers into being a class traitor, but he eventually sides with Linda and her revolt against those who were assigned wealth.
Life was horrible back then if you weren't in the super upper class. I'm just glad that we live in a time where there are no classes.
I get what you were going for.
In Season 9, Episode 3, Tina, Jean, and Louise join a school extracurricular in which they create a small business selling wooden figures. Tammy, Jocelyn, and Jimmy Jr. nonchalantly take power and assign themselves the roles of...
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I had never watched Bob's Burgers. And now I feel like I don't have to. Because I just found out everything there is to know about Bob's Burgers. So, okay, pretty cool. Show about class conflict. Fake Italians. And the guy with the cool mustache.
of management, doing comparatively little work but gaining far more rewards than labor. Tina initially sides with management until she realizes what this is doing to her siblings and to regular-sized Rudy. When labor recognizes the unfair power dynamics, they fight back, eventually making the small business collectively owned and operated among all workers. These are only a few examples. More than anything else in the series, the class conflict is highlighted most by Mr. Fishoder, the landlord, and the richest man in town. Mr. Fischoeder is not just the antagonist of one episode, but the primary antagonist of the series, positioning class conflict as an inescapable aspect of every episode of Bob's Burgers, regardless of whether or not Mr. Fischoeder appears, because the Belchers are always living and always working on their rented property. Rent-seeking is as unjustified as leeching the profits of labor from the workers. A rental property is not simply something someone owns that others want to buy. It is something someone privately owns that the entire community needs to live, and that cannot be realistically used only by the owner. The series humanizes Fischoeder from time to time, but the belief that rent is exploitation is not a personal jab at individual landlords, but a condemnation of the practice. Whether or not Fischoeder is a nice guy is irrelevant, though the series clearly frames him as, at best, aloof, and at worst, uncaring and conniving. In Season 1, Episode 13, Fischoeder shows Bob that the games he owns at Wonder Wharf can almost never be won, which is allegorical for the promise of wealth to the lower classes that is historically incredibly difficult to attain. Bob's Burgers.
I wish you did more of that. Like, the video got a lot better towards the end, where he then ties it back to actual
Bob's Burgers
dialectical
is the same as Family Guy,
materialism
The
or
Office, and
actual
Narcos.
fucking...
It's the Netflix and chill show. Hasan.
He's been doing it the entire time. I mean, he briefly talks about like police's nature and class conflict, but didn't really address it. Most of this is just flexing his Bob's Burgers lore. Yeah, like...
highlights
weird.
the exploitation between landlord and tenant in various episodes in which he has the Belchers perform unusual tasks for him in exchange for leniency on their often late rent. This is not generous on the part of Fischoeder. If the Belchers can't pay their rent, they're out on the street. It's an ultimatum that the Belchers must agree to, and Fischoeder recognizes this. Class conflict is perhaps the most overt in Season 5, Episode 21, in which Mr. Fischoeder threatens to raise the rent on much of the town. Bob organizes a rent strike and marches to Mr. Fischoeder's mansion. Fischoeder does what those with power and wealth always do: divide the working class against itself. He organizes a water balloon fight, with the winner receiving several months' free rent and the loser suffering through the raised rent. The town briefly goes along with it. Basically, capitalism brain. The idea that instead of organizing to avoid everyone being exploited, some will focus on the extremely unlikely chance of becoming the exploiter. In the end, the town recognizes this, organizes against Mr. Fischoeder, and Bob convinces him to keep the rent as is. A small victory. Bob's Burgers has a lot of humanity to it. A lot of talk of the common good. Rarely punching down. Fairly inclusive, and largely avoids the faux edginess that has plagued other animated comedies and has engendered unpleasant fan bases. Faux edginess is not bold. Bob's Burgers is bold because it has the audacity to talk about concerns of the poor in a way that does not shy away from that word, and does not shy away from who maintains economic.
Rick and Morty is not faux edgy. I don't think he's talking about Rick and Morty. I think he's more so talking about South Park. Rick and Morty overall is not edgy at all. If you guys think Rick and Morty is edgy, I don't know what to fucking tell you. He's definitely talking about South Park. Rick and Morty, on the other hand, is fairly woke. Maybe a little too liberal, but definitely very political. Definitely pretty woke in comparison to most other like adult cartoons. He did an episode on Rick and Morty. Why? Is he talking about Rick and Morty? Does he hate it? Fan base is the fucking worst. Rick and Morty fans think it's edgy. Why? Is this like an alcoholic granddad who's a narcissist? Is it the pickle? He is talking about Rick and Morty, unless you consider Israel-Palestine jokes edgy. Yeah, this guy's not going to be upset that... This guy's not going to be upset at fucking 9/11 jokes. I don't know. What has he said about Rick and Morty?
Like disparity.
Nihilism is seen as edgy. I mean, he's like a narcissistic nihilist, exploring the multiverse theory. But there's a lot of like political conflict, criticisms of genocide, criticism of imperialism, things like that. I think Rick and Morty has been co-opted by some of the most annoying fucking people, and that it went from a pretty good show overall to like something that you're embarrassed to admit you enjoy. And that's me. I am embarrassed to admit that I like Rick and Morty, and I used to love Rick and Morty very openly before it blew the fuck up. I have one of the directors of Rick and Morty is a huge fan of the Young Turks, and I have had the fortune of going to their studio in Burbank and like seeing the fucking drawings and stuff. It was awesome. Will and I went. It was one of the greatest moments of our lives. And then I think this was like right after season 3 came out, I think, and that's when it hit like peak velocity. And it turned into something that was too embarrassing to associate with on the timeline. Or like season 2, was it season 2 when it fucking blew up? And people started talking about how like fucking, you know, you have to be brilliant to understand how high IQ the show is. And then the Szechuan sauce saga really put a fucking nail in the coffin. And I tried defending it for the longest time. But after the Szechuan shit, or even before the Szechuan shit, it was like, no way.
That may or may not be the goal of the series or the intention of the writers, but in an attempt to make the series relatable, it has done just that.
Marshmallow in the house. Now put a burger in my mouth.
Oh, hey, Marshmallow.
Handsome.
That settles it. Mom's psychic.
No, she isn't. Marshmallow isn't handsome. She's beautiful.
Blush.
Tomato, potato, Dad.
What's your special power? I can crack anyone's back. Bob, come here.
All right, just this once.